So, good evening, everyone. And I was thinking about how today is the 1 year anniversary of the Hamas attack on Israel, which was really incredibly tragic. And since that time, as we all know, there's been so much fighting and tens of thousands of people, mostly innocent people, children, mothers, grandparents, and so on, have lost their lives. And the lives of so many other people have been tragically devastated. So I thought we could dedicate our session tonight that these conflicts in the Middle East and everywhere else, Ukraine and so on, will come to an end as quickly as possible, and that peaceful solutions will be found. So I thought that every class we start with a meditation, and I thought that tonight we will do a meditation on the breath, which is what we learned the first couple of weeks. And but this time I thought to use it as a practice to work on concentration, developing concentration. Last week I explained the 5 hindrances to concentration. So I thought you could be on the lookout for those, see if they occur during your meditation, and I'll remind you of them again. So the first one is sensual desire. So that is when our mind is attracted to objects of our senses. Well, we have our eyes closed, so we won't be seeing things, but sounds, smells, tastes, tactile sensations in our body. So if any pleasant sensation occurs during meditation, our mind might go to that, to get involved in that, and then we lose our object of concentration. Or memories of past experiences with pleasant objects of the senses might arise, and our mind will get involved in those thoughts, feeling longing, wanting to have those experiences again, and so on. So that's one of the hindrances. The second one is malice, and that's involved with anger, hatred, aversion, or even just irritation. So try to notice if thoughts of that occur. And then there's lethargy and sleepiness. That's sort of a dull, heavy, dark state of mind on the verge of falling asleep. Then the fourth is restlessness and regret. So that's where mind is very agitated, either with desire, attachment for past experiences, or feeling regret, feeling bad about past experiences, maybe caught up in worry and anxiety about them. And then deluded doubt. That's when our mind starts thinking in doubtful ways, like, oh, is this really worthwhile? Maybe I'm wasting my time. Maybe I should be doing something else. So those kinds of thoughts that have doubt. There's doubt about the value of what we're doing and so on. So just try to notice if any of those occur. And it seems that out of those 5 hindrances, 4 of them involve thoughts, like thoughts about objects we desire, or thoughts about objects we're angry at or annoyed by, or worrying, regret, or having doubts. So those kinds of thoughts come up, and our mind gets caught up in those thoughts, and we lose our object of meditation. And so one remedy to this kind of problem is to just notice what is going on and remember that this isn't what you're supposed to be doing. What we're supposed to be doing is focusing on our object of meditation, which in this case will be the breath, the breathing. And also to try to see that these kinds of thoughts are like a scam. I think that's a good analogy. They are kind of lying to us, cheating us, deceiving us, trying to rob us of the good experiences that we could have if we could meditate properly. Yeah, so try to see those kinds of thoughts as troublemakers, problems, rather than something you want to get involved in, should get involved in, and so on. So just, ignore them and return your attention to the breathing. And so if those kinds of thoughts are ignored, if we don't buy into them, pay attention to them, they should die down. They should quiet down. But then one of those five hindrances, lethargy and sleepiness, doesn't seem to involve thoughts or thinking, but it's a feeling of heaviness and dullness, almost as if someone has thrown a blanket over you and you're covered by this blanket. And so your mind is sort of, dark and unclear and, not bright and alert and vivid. So that's a little more subtle, a little harder to recognize than the other hindrances, which are more about thoughts. But if you do notice your mind feeling dark, heavy, dull, and even on the verge of falling asleep, then the remedy to that, or several remedies. One is to sit up straight. Maybe you've kind of slouched, leaning forward. So straighten your back, sit up straight. And it's good to open your eyes, have at least have the eyes at least partially open, so there's light coming in, and that can help you stay awake. You can also visualize light. So just think of light, imagine someone has turned on a bright light inside of you, illuminating your body and your mind. So just like when someone turns on the light, that wakes us up from sleep. So visualizing light can get us out of that state of heaviness, dullness. So yeah, just try to deal in a wise and skillful way with any of the hindrances that do occur, but maybe they won't occur. So don't sort of be, um, worried and anxious, and worried that they might appear. Just try to relax and focus on the breath as much as you can, but just have like a little part of your mind be like a spy, a lookout, watching to see what's actually going on and see if you can recognize any of these. Okay, so and we'll go through the four components of a meditation session that I taught a few weeks ago, starting with sitting in a good position, followed by generating a positive motivation for doing the meditation, and then going into the actual meditation itself, and then dedicating at the end. So make yourselves comfortable. Try to have your back straight. And if you're sitting on a chair, have your feet flat on the floor. If you're sitting cross-legged, then just have your legs crossed in whatever way is comfortable for you so that you don't have to move so much. And it's helpful if you can to keep your eyes open a little bit. Closing the eyes can lead to that problem of dullness or lethargy, sleepiness. And so keeping the eyes open a little and then having your gaze looking down, whatever's in front of you, that allows a little bit of light coming in, and that can help you to stay awake and alert. So you can do a quick scan of your body, and if you notice tension at any part, any point in your body, see if you can let go of the tension. Imagine it melting and flowing away out of you, sinking into the earth or disappearing in space. Just let go of it. Let your body be free of that tension. And also let go of any thoughts that might be running around in your mind, things that you did during the day, or plans you have for what you're going to do later tonight or tomorrow. So the past is over. It's not here anymore. It's best to let it go, especially when we're meditating. And the future isn't here yet. We don't know what will happen in the future. And so we do sometimes need to think about and make plans for the future, but not when we're meditating. So when we meditate, ideally we should keep our mind in the present, right here, right now. And let's take a few moments to generate a positive motivation. So, as we all know, there's a great deal of suffering and problems in the world. Everybody has their share of problems, even the millionaires and billionaires and celebrities. So they have problems too. And just like us, everyone wants to be happy, have peaceful, positive, good experiences, and nobody wants suffering or problems. But without choice, these happen. And the Buddha found a way to be free of suffering and problems and their very cause, which is mainly the afflicted states of mind like aversion or hatred, greed, attachment, jealousy, ignorance, and so on. And it is possible to free our minds from these afflictions and from the suffering that they bring. And meditation is an important part of the path to do that, to bring about that kind of transformation of our mind, freeing it from suffering and the causes of suffering, and generating happiness, positive states of mind, and the causes of those. And it's best if when we meditate, we're not thinking only of ourself, this one person we are, but to think of others as well. We're actually totally dependent on others. for everything. Our bodies come from others, our food, clothes, shelter, medicine. Um, so all the things we have and use and enjoy come from others. And so other beings are very important for ourself, for our own happiness. And it's only right that we appreciate that and feel the wish to repay their kindness and help them in return. And so if that makes sense to you, then you can think that I'm doing this meditation so that I can develop my ability to be more helpful, more beneficial for others, bring them peace and happiness, and help them be free of their suffering. Okay, so then I'll just remind you of the instructions for the meditation. So you focus your attention, your awareness on the breath, and try to be aware of the full inhalation and exhalation of each breath, one breath after another. If you find it helpful, you can count your breaths in rounds of 5 or 10 as you wish. And anytime you notice that your mind has wandered away from the breath to something else, a thought, a sound, whatever, then gently disengage from that other object and come back to the breath. And even if you have to do this again and again, it's okay. It's understandable. So don't be frustrated. Don't think badly of yourself. Think that you're hopeless. Just patiently come back to the breath again and again. And be on the lookout for any of the 5 hindrances that may occur, many of which involve thoughts, disturbing thoughts, distracting thoughts. So once you notice that, you can just let go of those thoughts and come back to the breath. If you do that firmly, then those thoughts will go away. They're not given attention, and so they'll just kind of die out by themselves. So now to conclude the meditation, feel a sense of joy that you did at least try to meditate. Don't have thoughts of, oh, I didn't do well, I did a lousy job, and so on, those self-deprecating thoughts. So just making the effort to meditate, just trying to meditate, trying to concentrate the mind is a good thing to do. So feel confident that you did do something worthwhile, something that creates merit, good energy. And let's mentally share this merit, this positive energy with all other beings, wishing that it will bring them peace and happiness, freedom from suffering and its causes, and help us all get closer to awakening Buddhahood. So up to now, um, what I have shared with you about dealing with hindrances in meditation is from the traditional teachings, like the five hindrances and how to deal with them. But in my own experience, trying to meditate for many years now, sometimes there are thoughts or emotions that come up that are hard to deal with, and they don't go away, but they keep coming back. So, for example, sometimes people have a memory from childhood that comes up, something you haven't thought about for many, many, many years and even forgot about. And then that comes up in meditation, and you realize you're still feeling hurt about that or angry about that, and so on. Or you might remember something that you yourself did that you feel bad about. You realize that was wrong, and so you feel regret, remorse. So these are like emotionally charged experiences, memories, thoughts, feelings. And you might try to ignore them, put them aside, and bring your mind back to your meditation object. But it's very hard to do. Those thoughts, those memories keep coming back. And so what I have found, and this is, what I myself do, is that with those kind of things, you need to look at them and you need to process them. It's like they're, crying out for help, and that's why they keep coming back, is because you need to look at them. And if we just try to ignore them, put them aside, ignore them, that can be like suppression or denial. And then those emotional problems don't get taken care of. So, what I usually advise people with that kind of thing that comes up in meditation is that you have a choice. There are two things you could do. One is to say to yourself, okay, I see that there's something there that needs to be dealt with. But right now I want to continue with my meditation practice, and I will give myself some time later to look at that and deal with that, process that. So you sort of put it aside for later and come back to your meditation. Or the other alternative is to put aside your meditation object and focus on that problem and try to work that out. And then you can pick up your meditation object again. And sometimes that's really the only thing you can do, because that other thing just won't leave you alone. It's like, I think of it like a crying baby. Yeah. If you're trying to meditate and there's a baby, a child in the house that's crying, and you just think, I'm going to ignore that, I'm going to ignore that, and just keep proceeding, it's like that baby needs attention. So you need to go and take care of the baby and try to understand what it needs and comfort it and so on. And then later you can come back and do your meditation. So it's like an internal crying child that is, yeah, asking for help, asking for attention. And so you can decide which of those two approaches to take with those kind of things. And sometimes it can be relatively simple. It could be, not a very complex issue. For example, maybe yesterday or this morning you got angry at somebody and yelled at them, and then the memory of that comes up in your meditation, and you realize, oh, I didn't act well. That wasn't a skillful thing to do. I need to go and apologize to that person. So that might be something you can kind of take care of within just a couple of minutes, and then you can decide, okay, I'm going to call that person or go and see that person and apologize. And then you can go back to your meditation. But sometimes these things that come up can be quite complex. So, for example, this is kind of an extreme example, but yeah, one time a young woman came to see me and told me that she'd been meditating. We were actually in India at Bodh Gaya, the place where the Buddha attained enlightenment. So she was sitting in the garden around the Bodhi tree where the Buddha attained enlightenment and meditating. And she suddenly started having these memories of being sexually abused when she was a child, like 5 years old, her father. And so as you can imagine, that was pretty devastating. And so, yeah, she came to see me and asked for some help. And I mean, something like that, you might need to get help from a therapist, and it could be something you might need years. It might take years of work to deal with the trauma, that whole situation. So that's kind of an extreme example, but that kind of thing does happen. Yeah, sometimes, the mind becoming quiet and calm allows memories to come up, things that happened to us long ago, or even in past lives. People sometimes have past life memories coming up when they meditate, and they can be kind of startling. And yeah, we might need time and help from professionals, from therapists or spiritual teachers to work through those kind of things. But probably most of the things of that nature that come up in meditation would not be so deep and troubling and require so much time. And so I would imagine most of the things that come up are things we can take care of fairly easily. And so, yeah, so I think it's actually a good thing that these things come up when we're meditating because, in our daily life, we're normally very busy running around doing this and that, being involved with people and the phone and the internet and so on and so forth. So our attention is so much directed outwards, not so much inwards. And so there can be things going on in our mind that need attention, that need help, but we don't notice them or we just don't have time to deal with them. We're just too busy. And so the fact that they do come up in meditation, I think is good because that gives us a chance to look at those things and work on those things. And like I say, we just have to try to do that skillfully. If we can do it on our own, in a way, meditation is like being your own therapist. That book was a book by Lama Yeshe called Being Your Own Therapist. So it's kind of like looking at your own mind and being therapist to yourself, using skillful means and compassion and wisdom to work out your problems. And some people are able to do that, or we're probably all able to do that at least sometimes. But with some problems, it's difficult to do that on your own. And so that's why there are teachers and more experienced meditators and so on we can turn to for help. So I wonder if any of you have encountered any problems, any other kind of problems in your practice of meditation that I haven't talked about and that you would like to bring up and ask about. Because everyone is different. Everyone has different experiences. So I talk, in terms of what I've experienced and what I've found helpful. But, other people have other things going on with them. Yes, Dr. Karen.
Karen. Yeah, so every once in a while I have like physical sensations and I assume that's normal. I just ignore them. But like sometimes, especially in the beginning, I like everything is itching. It's the weirdest thing. I'll be absolutely fine. And then I just find I start itching or deeper into it, it's like I feel sometimes like physically, and this is weird, but like I'm being pushed down. And I mean, I know I'm not, but it's not that I'm falling. I'm not feeling sleepy. I'm not falling asleep. It's a different sensation. So I, I'm, if I sort of look at that, and then it'll leave. Sometimes the itching takes a little bit, and it's just weird. So have you heard of? I mean, that, or am I a unicorn?
Yeah, actually, I maybe I haven't talked about this, but yeah, people when they start practicing meditation and also along the way as you're practicing meditation, it's quite common to have unusual experiences. These can sometimes be physical, like physical sensations. I've heard of some really interesting things that people talk about, like feel like they're floating off the floor or their body is moving and they open their eyes and they see they're, not moving. So yeah, maybe the itching is that kind of thing. Um, so, what the experienced teachers say is that we're doing something kind of unusual. Meditation is an unusual activity to be sitting still or trying to sit still as much as we can on, one place and then trying to keep our mind still, focused on just one thing for a prolonged period of time. So this is unusual. Yeah, it's something, it's not what we normally do. It's not what people normally do. And so because of the uniqueness of what we're doing, it can sometimes cause reactions within our body and our mind. So sometimes we can have these strange physical experiences, and sometimes these can happen on the mental level as well. People can have, strange images coming to their mind, or strange thoughts, or strange emotions. So, what the experienced teachers say is we shouldn't worry about these things. It's kind of normal in a way that, yeah, it's something that can happen when we're practicing meditation. And the best thing is to not be worried about it, and also not get excited about it, because sometimes these experiences might be sort of pleasant or interesting, exciting, unusual, and we might get excited and think, wow, maybe something's happening. Maybe I'm getting realizations. Maybe I'm getting close to nirvana. It can happen. I know it sounds funny, but yeah. Um, So the best thing is to just try to have an attitude of equanimity, meaning neither liking it nor disliking it, neither having attachment nor aversion or fear, but just have a neutral feeling and see it as just another kind of experience that is temporary, transitory. It comes and goes. And if you just observe it and let it go and come back to your object of meditation, then it should go, it should pass. If it doesn't, then it's good to ask a teacher for help, for advice. But just, yeah, hopefully it's helpful to know that other people have strange experiences as well, but they might differ from one person to another. Does that help?
Thank you very much. Yes, that does help.
Hi, Jennifer.
Yeah, I have some of the, I think it's called diluted doubt. Is that is that the one? Yeah. So, I what's going on for me is I'm wondering, does it really help when we're picturing the Buddha and the light, the rays of light, um and picturing getting like the realizations from the Buddha and the compassion from the Buddha, or same with Vajrasattva, the purification in the white light, and stretching out to all beings, and that and those types of meditations, does that really change your mind and change you as a person to do those types of meditations, is my question.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess diluted doubt would be if you're trying to do a practice like that, and then you're thinking, oh, I don't think this is worthwhile. This isn't really happening. This is just a fantasy. So it sort of interferes with the practice. But it's also kind of natural and okay to wonder about those kind of practices and how do they work. I mean, I think many of us do. Tibetans, this kind of practice, these different deities that are visualized, and the different mantras that you recite and so on. Tibetans grow up with that. And I think, and the people around them, their family and their teachers and so on, they're all doing those practices. And I think for them, it's just easy to accept them and get into them, and not have these sort of doubts and questions that we do. But we, Westerners, we usually encounter these teachings partway through our life when we're adults, and we're kind of taught to question, and have doubt about things. And so it's just natural to have doubt and wonder, what is this all about? And is it really worthwhile? So I've certainly had those myself.
Yeah.
Um, and and also no, you don't have to do those practices. I mean, we can decide, we can choose what practices to do or not. Those are recommended practices, but if you try them and you find they don't help at all, then you don't have to do them. So those practices, like I said, it's part of the Tibetan tradition. I'm not sure if other Buddhist traditions do them or not. Um, but they're mainly from Vajrayana Buddhism, Tantra. And Tantra has a whole amazing philosophy, about what you're doing and how it works. And I mean, it's all based on the fact that we have the potential to become enlightened. We have all these good qualities, all these good parts of ourself that are like in seed form and just need to be brought out and nourished, developed so that they can get stronger and greater. And then, eventually we'll become a Buddha, fully enlightened Buddha. And so those practices are really for that purpose. They are for the purpose of helping us get in touch with our good qualities and also clearing away negative qualities like the practice of Vajrasattva. That's particularly for purification. So to get rid of or clear away the obstacles, the negative energy that's in the way of our spiritual development. And so they're kind of working on more subtle levels of our being, not so much intellectual. And if we try to understand them intellectually, we try to use our intellect to make sense of these and think, oh, I'm not going to do this practice until I really understand it and it makes sense to me, then we might never get around to doing it. And so I used to, have a lot of trouble with them, but I would find that when I do these practices, they do have an effect. I do feel good. I do feel kind of more pure, more clear. And so I would just have to work with them and kind of explain them to myself, come up with an explanation that would make sense to me. And then I would think that is what I'm doing and that's what's going on. And then that would sort of ease my mind about doubts and, wondering if this is really worthwhile. Does that make sense?
Um, what is the last part you said? You said you have to explain it to yourself a little bit about what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, sometimes the teachings themselves, like, the traditional teachings about these practices, they're really like the bare bones. They just tell you, visualize this and think that and recite that. And
Yeah.
they don't so I would kind of fill in, the details with my own understanding. I don't think I was just inventing things, but based on what I have heard from other sources, other teachers, then I would sort of uh, make my own explanation of what I'm doing and how it's worthwhile, how it's beneficial. Lama Yeshe was actually particularly good when it came to explaining those kinds of practices. So I mean, like there's a book called Introduction to Tantra by Lama Yeshe, where he explains, I think, in really good terms that we Westerners can make sense of and relate to, and makes it all really kind of meaningful and inspiring. And there's a number of other books that he wrote, like one about Vajrasattva practice. So, yeah, his way of explaining things was particularly helpful if you can get a hold of any of those materials.
By Lama Yeshe, both of them, the Vajrasattva and the Intro to Tantra, correct?
Tantra, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Probably good to start with introduction to Tantra because that's more basic. That's more like intro level, like what is Tantra all about? What is visualization all about?
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I would think of is, it's helpful to have role models, right? We're easily influenced by other people that we meet, other people we see, other people we spend time with. So if we are with people who have good qualities, then we, some of that rubs off on us, and we can develop those good qualities as well. Likewise, if we hang out with people who are angry and selfish and greedy, then we become more like that ourselves. And so that's another aspect of these sort of practices. Like we try to visualize the Buddha or Vajrasattva and the quality, think about the qualities that they have, the way they are. And then we spend time, with them. I mean, it's all on the level of visualization, but still, it has a good effect on us, a good influence on us. So they are like role models, examples, showing us what is possible for ourselves, what kind of qualities we can develop, how we can be ourselves. So that's another way of looking at it. Mm. Anyone else? Okay, well, I did want to, there was something else I had prepared to talk about. Um, so last week I talked about, I gave a list of these 5 hindrances to concentration. And there's also another list of 5 things that are called faults or obstacles to the development of calm abiding. Some of you may have encountered those. They're explained in the Lamrim, the stages of the path. Yeah, I've made a slide of them. And these are the things that Tibetan lamas usually talk about. They talk about these 5 obstacles. They don't usually talk about that other list of 5 that I mentioned, that we looked at last week. However, that other list of 5 hindrances, they are mentioned in the Bodhisattva vows. Some of you may have taken the Bodhisattva vows, and one of the secondary vows mentions those 5, saying that, yeah, we need to work on overcoming them. And if we don't try to overcome those those hindrances to concentration, then that's a transgression of that vow. So I think it's good to know about those 5 and how to deal with them when they arise. But I also thought it'd be helpful to look at these 5 because these can occur to us as well. And there is some overlap, some of the same points. So I'll just kind of quickly go through these. So the first is laziness. And there's different kinds of laziness, like just being attached to sleep or just hanging around and doing nothing useful. But in the context of calm abiding, trying to develop concentration, laziness means feeling reluctance to meditate, just like, oh, I don't feel like it. I should meditate, but I don't feel like it. That kind of you probably experienced that sometimes. And so that's an obstacle because if we do want to develop good concentration and calm abiding, which is a really high level of concentration, we do need to put in time. We need to spend time practicing in order to develop our concentration. And so if we have laziness and we don't feel like meditating, we won't do it, and then we'll never be able to attain the state of calm abiding. And so there are 4 antidotes to laziness. The first is faith. And faith here doesn't mean faith in the Buddha, but faith in the good qualities of calm abiding, of concentration. And so it's actually best to get teachings on calm abiding, and there's a lot of information, such as what are the benefits of attaining calm abiding. So one benefit is that if we develop calm abiding, we will be able to keep our mind focused on positive things, virtuous things, and we won't find ourselves, wandering away to non-virtuous things, which is often what happens. If we don't have concentration, then our mind, gets caught up in thoughts and attitudes that aren't helpful, that are even harmful. And so we'll be able to have much more control over our mind and keep our mind in a good state, in a positive state, virtuous rather than non-virtuous. And then calm abiding is also important to develop the stages of the path. So if you are interested in following the path and attaining higher states, realizations, and eventually enlightenment, it's essential to have concentration. It's just not possible to progress along the path and attain those higher states without concentration, without calm abiding. And even here and now, even not talking about long-term higher results, but even in our present life, if we can gain more control over our mind and have better concentration, then it's very blissful. Being able to concentrate brings bliss to your body and your mind. And so even here and now, we'll have nice experiences as a result of concentration. And so if we can contemplate the good qualities of calm abiding, then that will lead to aspiration, which is the second antidote. That means this feeling like, I want to attain that. That's a good thing to attain. I want to attain it. And that in turn leads to joyous effort, having energy to practice, to do whatever it takes in order to attain calm abiding. And so that way we will, be happy to sit down and meditate and do the practice to attain calm abiding. And then as a result of that, we keep practicing, keep training ourselves, keep developing our concentration. Eventually, we will attain pliancy. So pliancy, this is a virtuous, it's actually a mental factor, but it causes mental and physical bliss. So it said that when you attain calm abiding, you attain this quality of pliancy, and your whole body and mind feel blissful, light, flexible, and you can use your body and mind in whatever way you want. So they say it's just a wonderful experience. So they say once you have pliancy, once you've achieved that, then you will no longer have any laziness. And your laziness will be finished because you see for yourself how worthwhile it is, how wonderful it is to do this kind of practice. Then the second obstacle is forgetfulness. And what this means is that not like forgetting people's names, but forgetfulness of the object of meditation, forgetting the object. Okay, so usually at the beginning of our session, we sit down and say, I'm going to meditate on the breath, or I'm going to meditate on the Buddha, or I'm going to, whatever, you decide what you're going to meditate on. And maybe for the first few minutes or for the first few seconds, you're able to remember that and keep your mind on that object. But after a short time or a long time, depends on each person, then you forget your object and your mind is wandered off somewhere else, gone somewhere else. And so that is a hindrance, that's an obstacle, because to be able to develop concentration, we need to be able to keep our mind focused on the same object for longer and longer and longer periods of time. It's like we're training our mind to be concentrated on one object. And for that to happen, we need to keep our mind focused on that object. If it keeps going here and there and everywhere, we won't be able to develop concentration. So the antidote to forgetfulness is mindfulness. Mindfulness can have different meanings, but in this context, it means remembering the object. And so you start off meditating on the breath, And then after a few seconds or a few minutes, you're thinking about some problem at work or something you have to do tomorrow or whatever. And so then mindfulness will say, oh, wait a minute, I'm not supposed to be doing that. I'm supposed to be meditating on the breath. So you remember what you're supposed to do. You remember your meditation object. That's the meaning of mindfulness. The word for mindfulness in Sanskrit, Tibetan, Pali, and so on is the same as the word for memory or remembering. That's the real meaning of mindfulness, is remembering. And here it means remembering what you're supposed to be doing, remembering your meditation object. So that's something we do have mindfulness already. We just need to develop it further, train ourselves to have better and better mindfulness. And then the third is laxity and excitement. So that's actually two in one. So laxity is pretty much the same as what we looked at before, lethargy. It's kind of very close to that. It's just this feeling of heaviness, darkness. There's a lack of clarity and vividness in the way you're experiencing your meditation object. And then excitement is related to attachment. That's when our mind wanders away from the object of meditation to other things that we're attracted to, interested in, excited about. So it makes it very hard to stay focused on the object. So that's related to desire or attachment. And the antidote to both of those is called introspective awareness. Sometimes this is called vigilance. So vigilance or introspective awareness is a little bit like a spy. They say it's like a spy. It's like one part of the mind that is watching the mind, paying attention to the mind, what is going on. Like I think I mentioned before, another example, an analogy is a security guard in a bank. Yeah, it's just keeping an eye out for trouble and notice if there is trouble, noticing it and then taking care of it, dealing with it. So how to develop introspective awareness? It's said that if we have strong mindfulness, introspective awareness comes by the way, kind of like a companion, a sidekick of mindfulness. So if we develop mindfulness, our mindfulness is strong, introspective awareness will naturally be there. And so if introspective awareness is there, then we'll notice, oh, there's excitement, my mind is wandering away, and I have to deal with that. And so then when introspective awareness notices one of these faults, either laxity or excitement, then it deals with it. So the way of dealing with laxity is, as mentioned before, you sort of sit up straight, you open your eyes, you imagine light. So you try to uplift your energy, wake yourself up, get yourself more clear and bright. And for excitement, the antidote is just keep coming back to the object of meditation. And if that doesn't work, then you can contemplate something that will sober the mind, like impermanence or death, or something that kind of cools down this excitement and gets you to be more serious about your practice. So I'm just briefly explaining this, but there are various ways of dealing with those problems. And then number 4 is called non-application of antidotes. So what this means is if one of those problems arises, if there's laxity or excitement, and if you don't do anything about it, if you just ignore it, that's a problem. That becomes another problem because then those those faults become habitual, more and more habitual. I guess it's a bit like if you're a parent and your child is doing something naughty and you don't say anything about that. You don't do anything about that. You just let them misbehave, then that becomes a habit. And they know they can get away with that and they just keep doing it again and again. So it's like, yeah. So similar with our mind, if there's some kind of fault in our practice, in our meditation, our development of concentration, we need to notice it and deal with it, applying the antidotes to it. Otherwise, it becomes a bad habit. And then, then number 5 is over application of antidotes. So this is something that would occur much later in your practice, once you have already developed pretty good concentration and you're able to stay focused on your object quite well, and you don't have so many problems with laxity and excitement and so on. But what this fault means is that you apply antidotes unnecessarily. So if there isn't a fault happening in your meditation, but you're applying antidotes. So that would be a little bit like if the parent. Okay, so if the child is stopped misbehaving and is now behaving well, they're doing what they're supposed to do, doing their homework or whatever, and you continue to, talk to them and say, you should, you should, you shouldn't, you shouldn't. So you're continuing to scold them even though they've stopped misbehaving. So the kid will probably be confused and maybe annoyed, and that's not helpful. Okay, so that means, when there are no faults in our meditation practice, our practice is going well, then we shouldn't apply antidotes. And the antidote to that problem is equanimity, which means just letting things be, letting your practice be. If it's going well, let it be. Don't interfere when it's going well. But that's much later. That's something we would deal with at a higher level of practice. So the first couple of these obstacles are things that you might notice, like laziness, reluctance to practice, lack of joy, lack of energy to practice, forgetfulness, mind forgetting the object, laxity and excitement. So we're probably in the beginning of our practice, we're more likely to deal with those first 3 obstacles. And there's a lot more to be said about these, but I think one of the slides a couple weeks ago I did mention a book that's really good on calm abiding or shamatha meditation by Genlam Rinpa. So if you are interested in more information, that's a good resource. So I was thinking, just for the last part of our session tonight, to lead a simple visualization practice. In the question and answer earlier, Jennifer asked about visualization, and this is actually another kind of meditation practice that's done a lot in Tibetan Buddhism, and in fact, probably many of you have encountered it. I'm never sure when I'm teaching a course what kind of background people have, what kind of experience people have. So this is meant to be a sort of beginner's course, just taking your first steps in meditation. But yeah, visualization is something else that is used in meditation, especially in Tibetan Buddhism. And there's a lot of practices that involve visualizing Buddhas or, different deities like Vajrasattva and so on. And when I wrote the book, How to Meditate, I created a very simple visualization that takes the main points of those kind of practices, visualizing deities and so on, and light, but without a deity, instead visualizing a sphere of light that represents lots, all the good qualities. And then we bring that into ourselves and imagine ourselves being transformed by that. And so I thought that that kind of practice would be helpful for people who are new to meditation and it's difficult to visualize deities. And they may also have some discomfort because, we don't grow up with these deities. We encounter them partway through our life. And so we might wonder, well, who are these and why am I visualizing them and so on? Whereas just a ball of light is kind of simple, not too complex. So I thought we could end tonight with this meditation. It's kind of short and sweet, and if you haven't done visualization practice before, this is a good place to start. Okay, so once again, get into a good position, a comfortable position, trying to keep your back straight. Let your breathing flow in and out in a natural way. Let your mind settle down. If there are any thoughts in your mind not related to what we're doing here, put those aside for now. And now visualize or imagine in the space above your head a sphere made of light. You can imagine it white or rainbow colored or whatever color you like, something beautiful. And you can imagine it any size you wish. But imagine it being of pure light, transparent, not solid, like a light bulb, but more like a rainbow. When you see a rainbow in the sky, it can appear very bright, but it's not solid, something you could touch, grab onto. And don't worry if it doesn't appear clearly or if it comes and goes. Just do the best you can to visualize it. And the important thing is to feel that it's there, even if you can't really visualize it clearly. Just to say to yourself, it's there. And this ball of light represents all good qualities that exist in the universe, like loving kindness, compassion, patience, generosity, wisdom, and so on. Whatever good qualities you can think of that you admire and would like to make more part of yourself. So I think that it's all those good qualities, all that good energy that's appearing in the form of this ball of pure radiant light. Now feel the wish to bring this light into yourself, make it part of you. And imagine that it does come down. You can imagine the whole ball of light coming down into your head. You can imagine it melting and becoming like liquid light, which then flows into the top of your head. And then imagine it going through all parts of your body, all the way down to your toes, to your fingertips, all the way up to the top of your head. It fills all the parts of your body, even the tiny parts like the cells, molecules, atoms. Imagine your whole body getting filled with this light. And imagine your body transforming into light, becoming that pure, bright, radiant, transparent light. And feel that all the good qualities that were represented by the light become part of you. Your mind gets transformed, free of all negative qualities like anger, greed, selfishness, and gets filled with those positive qualities, universal love and compassion and so on. So just imagine this happening and let your mind rest in that experience for a few moments and try not to think, oh, this isn't true, this isn't really happening. This is a way of getting in touch with our good qualities, our potential for transformation. And just let yourself experience all that good energy, all those good qualities. And then see if you can feel how nice it would be if you could share this experience with others. Get others to have this experience as well. And imagine the light radiating out from your body, going in all directions, like the sun radiating its rays of light in all directions, reaching every part of the world, of the solar system. Just imagine rays of light going out from you to others, other people, other beings. They get filled up with the light and transformed by the light, free of all their negative energy and filled with only pure and positive energy. Now let's make a dedication of this meditation that we just did, as well as all the other positive energy from what we did tonight, learning about meditation, practicing it with a good motivation, wanting to benefit others as much as possible. So let's imagine sharing this good energy, this merit with all other living beings everywhere, and wishing that they could all get in touch with their real nature, their potential for positive qualities like love and compassion and wisdom, and being free of all negative qualities like anger and ignorance and greed and selfishness and so on. And may they realize their highest potential for awakening. Okay, so that just gives you a little taste of the practice of visualization. And so next week, I'm going to be away. I'm actually going to some teachings in California. But I'll be back and we'll have another class on the 21st of October. So that's 2 weeks from tonight. That'll be our last class. Yeah, I think there was some misunderstanding or miscommunication with Venerable Dundrup. I thought he was going to lead a discussion next week, but he wrote me today saying, no, the discussion will be on the 28th of October. That will be the last final session of this course. So, Michael, did he ask you to check with people if they wanted to meet next week or not? Did he say anything about that?
He did not say anything to me. Shayla, did you hear anything about that? Usually, if he does, he sends an email to both Shayla and I didn't get anything.
Well, so maybe next week we can just have a break. You can meditate on your own, try it out on your own. And
Right now,
then
there's no calendar.
nothing on the calendar. Okay. Okay. So we'll meet again 2 weeks from tonight, have our final class, and then Venerable Dundrup will lead a discussion on the 28th, the last Monday of October. Okay. So thank you all for joining. Thank you, Michael, for facilitating. See you in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.